We have a 2008 smart car. It was brought in for a check engine light, and the check engine code is for the is a P2188. The mixture at cylinder bank 1 is too rich at idle speed. It's a stored code, and the fault is a small fault right now, so meaning that it's not occurring right now, but the check engine light is staying on. So we check for the air intake leaks in the system, and we also check the exhaust manifold for leaks. And we use the smoke machine to look for leaks. Right now, there are no leaks in the system. We blocked off this air hose, and we connected the smoke machine to the air intake line underneath the car. That's really the best access to the intake manifold, which was here, and we had the machine running for a while, and we saw the pressure building up on the machine, and we saw that there were no small leaks anywhere on the intake system. We also checked the exhaust system for leaks, and we saw that the exhaust had no leaks, and the car was never rear-ended, so the exhaust is out of question. Basically, a P2188 code is for unmetered air, and we look for unmetered air throughout the whole system of the car. And since we were unable to find any leaks both on the exhaust side and intake side, we're going to suspect that this throttle actuator, which acts like an airflow meter, is at fault. We're going to erase the code and have the customer go with the car and see if the code comes back. If the code comes back, we're going to probably recommend a throttle actuator slash airflow meter. If for any reason this hopefully we're going to wait to see if the code for a bad throttle actuator presents itself. Also some other suspect things that could be for this same code for the for the P2188 code. It could be bad injection valves, it could be a bad intake air temperature sensor, it could be the O2 sensors, and it could also be a coolant temp sensor. But the only way to know for sure if those are issues would be to wait and see if any codes come up for those problems. And that's about it. So there are no leaks in this car, and we're going to let it go and have the customer drive it some more to see what code comes back. If any of the items I just mentioned could be suspect. But for right now, we suspect that possibly the airflow meter slash throttle actuator is suspect, which is this thing right here. So the P2188 code is a code that's basically saying that the mixture in the cylinder bank 1 is too rich at idle speed, which means that there is most likely, number one suspect cause is that there's an air leak either in the air intake or air exhaust system of the car. There are other things that could possibly be wrong, which we'll touch on this video, but for now, if you have this code, there's a fuel mixture problem. And on the ME system of the car, when we talk about the ME system on a Mercedes or a smart car, we're talking about the Bosch Motronic fuel injection system that's on the car. I'm going to show you a quick diagram of how this Motronic system works, and we have it over here up on our wall. And basically this is a Motronic Bosch system, and the computer, which is right here, this is the computer right where this red dot is going in a circle. This is the ME computer, and this computer actually measures through all its sensors throughout the whole car how much air goes in a car. So we have air going into the car motor, and basically what a motor is basically a big giant air pump. So the amount of air that goes in a car gets measured through something called an air mass sensor, or in this case on a smart car, a throttle actuator. And that throttle actuator has a little air intake temperature sensor that could go bad inside of it, or the throttle actuator itself could go bad. Or the other possibility is that between this throttle actuator on the intake side of the system, which is all this blue air going in the engine, this is the intake side, and then there could be an air leak right after the throttle actuator. There could be a leak in the piping after the airflow meter. There could be a leak in the breather hose or the vacuum lines that go everywhere throughout the whole car. So you have to pay attention as to whether or not there are any leaks on the intake side of the car. If you don't see any leaks, then the other thing you got to check is the exhaust system on the car, which is this yellow area. This yellow area has a little O2 sensor, and this O2 sensor measures how much air is leaving the exhaust. So this O2 sensor could also be a problem for this code. If the O2 sensor is bad, it could throw a code for unmetered air. So we have to check for leaks on the exhaust side. If the car's been rear-ended, we want to check for any damage on the exhaust side of the car. We want to check exhaust gaskets and any leaks on the side. So make sure that there's no leaks on the exhaust side before the O2 sensor. So basically, unmetered air could cause the car to run rich, and you can get unmetered air in between the throttle actuator and in between the O2 sensor. So always check with the smoke machine whether or not you're getting any unmetered air in the system. There's other sensors that need to be checked when we do this, so we're going to touch on that real quickly. The thing that it also could be is the injection valves. There could be an issue with the injection valves. The intake manifold pressure sensor, which is this sensor here, it could cause. It measures how much manifold pressure there is in the system. That could be an issue. And then the coolant temperature sensor. The coolant temperature sensor also could be an issue for this P2188 code. So there's a lot of variables. The way to know for sure which one it is to actually wait to see where's the ME pointing you at. If all it's telling you right now is that there's a rich idle problem and there's nothing else describing the code, then you want to check for leaks in between the throttle actuator and the O2 sensor. If there's no leaks whatsoever, which in our case was the case, we had the customer drive the car until hopefully we could find out which sensor it is. That's really the only alternative, is to continue to drive the car, and hopefully it'll point us in the direction of which sensor is causing the problem. Just remember that an engine is a big giant air pump. The more air goes through it, the same amount of air should come out of it. And the car can tell if unmetered air is being taken into the engine because of both the throttle actuator measures the right amount of air precisely and tells the ME computer that, and then the O2 sensor does exactly the same thing. So if there's a leak, it'll report it to the computer, or if there's an issue with the sensor, it'll report it to the computer. So it's important that you pay attention to unmetered air and then look at problems at the sensors.